Where has Josh been? Well, honestly, I was waiting on some Pokemon Go politics, and I really couldn't find anything until Donald Trump had just posted something on his Facebook the other day. I don't know why these politicians can't connect. Not that they can't connect, but why can't their staffers figure it out? They did some, like, crooked Hillary no, and it's like where you use the game to catch Hillary, which, I mean, did that make her a Pokemon? What kind of powers does she have? Is she like a psychic type or a fire type? I mean, because that's kind of cool. I mean, if you caught me and I was a Pokemon, it'd probably be like ground and electric and angry, you know, a mean looking one. Yeah, she could be a goofy looking one, maybe, but I mean, I don't know. Be a Pokemon? It's kind of cool. Anyway, welcome to Political Island Podcast with your host, Josh. I'm Josh, your host, where we only talk about the most important political goings on today. Now, I want to apologize for my long absence this week. It wasn't just because there was no Pokemon Go news, which is kind of sad, I have to say. There have been some other opinions, but as far as like actual politics and Pokemon Go, there hasn't been too much going on. So I think Niantic Labs has come under a lot of fire for their handling of the problems that they've had, and apparently some new update. I don't know. It's becoming less tempting for me to want to play it now, so I guess that's a pretty good thing. However, I've been gone for a little bit because I was just thinking that, man, no one's listening to this, and I'm just another, straight white guy who has a little microphone and a little laptop, and I don't know. Then I remembered, oh yeah, I forgot I'm doing this for me because I'm bored and I'm having fun. So what made me get on the microphone this week, though, was President Obama, as reported by CNN's Kevin Liptak, and it just drove me up the wall. I was just incredulous at how he could say that Trump is the most unfit person to run for president, which you may be thinking, well, Josh, he is pretty dang unfit to run for president, and that's true. But next to President Obama's resume, or let's go back, Senator Obama's resume, Obama was the most unqualified president that we've had. He was a community organizer, whatever that means. And then after that, he was in the Illinois Senate, and then he didn't even serve half a term as a U.S. Senator, and then becomes president because of a speech that he gave at the Democratic National Convention 4 years before. And I feel like I can hear a lot of you say, blah, 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 politics as usual, attack the bad guy, right? The part that drives me nuts is that during the Bush presidency, when Senator Obama was going, and Hillary Clinton was relentlessly attacking him on him being quite unqualified, if in case you don't remember that. But President Bush wasn't talking in front of foreign heads of state like President Obama was in front of the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Indonesia. I can't remember that flag right now off the top of my head, but he's with a foreign head of state, and he's bashing someone who isn't even in office yet. And let's pretend, if you will, that we do have a President Trump, and you have the ex-president going around telling world leaders about, oh, this guy's awful, this guy's terrible. Is that really in the best interest of the United States? Like, well, President Trump's not going to be the best interest of the United States. Okay, guess what, bud? That's not up to you to decide who the next president is, obviously. That's up to us. And that person, that office, is beyond a President Obama. It is beyond a President George W. Bush. It is beyond a President FDR. It is an office to be respected and venerated no matter what your opinion is on who holds the office. So the president's going around making the presidency of the United States look foolish before it even has a fool in there, at least according to him. And it's wrong. It's unpatriotic. It's not in the best, and whether you're patriotic or not, if you care, whatever, but it is not in the best interest of the United States and its people to have a president bashing someone who could be president. It's it just made me so angry because, once again, President Bush extended the kind invitation to Senator Obama, whose entire campaign was pretty much hating President George W. Bush. His campaign was based around whatever George W. Bush did, I plan on doing the opposite thereof. And for the most part, he did. But President Bush was not talks with other heads of state talking about, oh, this Obama guy, I don't know if he's going to be too great. In fact, he's the most unfit person for office I've ever seen. Just makes me so angry, disrespecting the office of the President of the United States. I'm going to let you listeners in on a little secret. Some of you know me and know what I've done and know the background that I have, but I used to be a White House intern, and whenever I came home, and it was people would ask me if it ever came up, it got brought up somehow that, yeah, I used to work in the White House. Usually one of my friends would bring it up because I didn't want that to be a first thing I say in a conversation. Oh, hi, I'm Josh. I used to intern in the White House. Anyway, so if it got brought up, first question, of course, is, well, who did you work for? And my standardized answer was, it really doesn't matter who works in the Oval Office. If the President of the United States calls your name, you drop everything and you go to work for him. It really doesn't matter. And, of course, I got some sneers and some looks, and being from Texas, you can probably figure out pretty easily who it is that I worked for, and the fact that I'm not, 68. And and there was so much more tense back then. I mean, I think they hated Republicans way more 8 years ago than they hate Republicans today. I know it may be hard to comprehend for some of you who just kind of now started paying it. It was ugly because I don't know. Go look back and look at stories and some of the horrible things that, of course, people say horrible things all the time, but things that representatives and senators and were saying about the divide in this country. So speaking of great divides, I'm going to give you a quick history lesson. I don't know if too many of you really know a little bit of the history of, well, Maoist communism. And I'm going to get to the story here in a moment, but I want to get some things down first so that you listener know exactly what I am talking about. So there was a thing during Maoist China. It was called a struggle session. And I'm going to read it straight from Wikipedia here for you. But a struggle session was a form of public humiliation and torture used by the Communist Party of China in the Mao Zedong era, particularly during the Cultural Revolution, to shape public opinion and to humiliate, persecute, or execute political rivals and class enemies. In general, the victim of the struggle session was forced to admit to various crimes before a crowd of people who would verbally and physically abuse the victim until he or she confessed. Struggle sessions were often held at the workplace of the accused, but were sometimes conducted in sports stadiums with large crowds would gather if the target was famous enough. During Mao's leadership, the Chinese people attended many different types of struggle sessions, sometimes consisting of 100,000 people. During the 1950s, when Mao's government began the land reform movement, and I'll get into land another day, but the land reform movement, poorer peasants seized the land from their landlords, who were given the title of, quote, exploiting class, and an estimated 2 million landlords were swiftly executed after being subjected to a struggle session. So, one of the things, so that's a struggle session, that was in Maoist China, and so one of the things, it developed from the ideas of criticism and self-criticism that kind of originated from the Soviet Union back in the 1920s, which you can see further down on that Wikipedia page if you just type in struggle session. And if you click on the self-criticism and then go down to the communism area, it says, under some system of communism, party members who had fallen out of favor, okay, blah, 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 blah. People who had fallen out of favor with the communist ruling class were sometimes forced to undergo self-criticism sessions, producing either written or verbal statements detailing their ideological errors and affirming their renewed belief in the party line. Self-criticism, however, did not guarantee political rehabilitation, and often offenders were still expelled from the party or, in some cases, even executed. So I tell you those boring definitions to tell you about this story that happened right here in Texas. And in case you didn't know, Political Island is recorded in Texas in front of a live studio audience. Heat Street reports from Nahima Markal. You may have seen it in the news, but the University of Houston, there was a student there who's been forced to attend a 3-day diversity workshop and has been suspended from the Student Government Association for 50 days, where she was vice president because she had put hashtag All Lives Matter on her Facebook page. And this was apparently right after the Dallas was in Texas. And on our Facebook page said, forget hashtag Black Lives Matter, more like hashtag All Lives Matter, which is pretty innocuous. And whether or not you understand why people make fun of people saying hashtag All Lives Matters or whatever isn't really relevant. That's an argument for another day that I'm not going to have right now. But this student who was on her Facebook page, on her personal Facebook page, says something that someone else didn't agree with, and so some other student decided to screenshot it, send it to the president, where the council gave the president special powers to be able to suspend the vice president. And it's just, it's disgusting. It's absolutely repulsive. It's how someone doesn't agree with you, so you're going to take away their position in a representative government type of model that you have going on. There's no room for thought at universities. And this isn't Houston. It's not like we're at California, Berkeley. We're not at Harvard. We're not at some super ultra liberal progressive. We're talking about University of Houston, who pumps out a whole bunch of business students and liberal arts students, and that's what this is. That's what this is coming to, because you can have diversity of people and the way they look and the way that they, whatever color that they may be, white, black, who cares, any of those colors, and you get the same product cranked out. You have it homogenizes thought. The colleges want to take a whole bunch of people who look very different and make them all think the exact same, at least at the administrator level. And you had a bunch of some of these crazy professors who are also screaming at students at protests and stuff like that, calling them stupid because they're great role models and these are the people who are teaching. Anyway, this is what I'm afraid of. I think people get me pegged wrong sometimes, think that I'm just, I lean to the right. But I think, and you could probably talk to my parents about this, but I think there's nothing I hate more than people in control of me. I don't know if there's anything that I despise more than someone having control over me. And I realize that some control, obviously by some government programs and protection that we do, some of that freedom that we do sacrifice to be able to have some level of safety. But when you start getting into forcing people to speak a certain way, to think and apologize for things that really aren't super controversial. I mean, I understand that some of the Black Lives Matter folks may disagree with the All Lives Matter thing, but it's not like they were threatening them or calling them degrading names. There's no reason. The reasons for people getting sent to these re-education classes and diversity classes, the thresholds are becoming less and less and less, and streamlining, educated thought. Well, you're educated because you go to university, you get a diploma, but you're being educated the same thing. And if you don't think outside the box, find some professors who do think outside the box still. You're going to, if you're sitting in class and you're accepting everything that's coming out of your professor's mouth, or if you're sitting at home watching Fox News agreeing with everything that the talking heads are saying, you have become a victim of that homogenized thought. It's time to read. It's time to look at different things. Examine your own values, your personal identity that hasn't been prescribed to you by anyone else who you are, who you believe you are, and just because, I don't know, for instance, I've never smoked marijuana in my life, never have, never will, and I think it should be legal, because, it should be regulated like alcohol. I feel like it's not very dangerous. I've been around people who have smoked it before, and they're pretty harmless. Most of the time less harmless than people with alcohol, and I know people make that argument all the time, but I'm just trying to make a point. I realize that Fox News is trying to say never legalize weed, it's evil and it's the devil, and I also realize that I kind of agree a little bit more with people on the left, not to the extent where, it should be legal, man, everyone should smoke, it's good for everyone, and it never hurt anybody, which is a lie. But I can agree with them and still vote, some libertarian, or vote Republican, or vote a moderate Democrat who's not bat, crazy. And so, if you're sitting there watching TV, finding yourself agreeing with everything that someone is saying, I want to challenge you to challenge yourself and to examine yourself and think, do I really agree with this at my core? And I'm not going to say it's going to be everything that you're going to disagree with. It's probably going to be something like 80% of the things you'll agree with. And even listening to me, which I don't know if I know too many people who agree with me, maybe like 2 people that I've met out of several thousand people who share the same opinions that I do. But if you find yourself agreeing too much, it's time to listen to something else. If you're listening to Rush Limbaugh, turn on some NPR. If you're listening to NPR, turn on some Rush Limbaugh. Get some listen to the other side, or don't listen to radio at all. Just read the news, read several different publications. Go to Drudge Report if you want to look to the right. Go to, I guess, MSNBC if you want to look to the left. I still look at NPR if I want to get a little bit of a liberal bent on things. But just challenge yourself, because we are coming into an age where public education is streamlining liberal thought in a not very good way, and saying that anyone who disagrees with them is, of course, uneducated because they won't have the education, but is also wrong and will force everyone else, like HR of a horrible corporation, to force you to say and apologize and do the same thing. So, I have talked way too long on this one. I will crank it up again next week, and I will talk to you soon. This has been Political Island Podcast. Aloha.